Well, hello, everybody. Pastor Steve here. I'm thankful you've joined me for today's devotion. In our Bible reading plan, we are in Exodus chapter 33. The people of God are still encamped at the bottom of Mount Sinai. God tells them it's time to begin their journey toward the promised land. They don't leave in chapter 33, but they start getting ready to leave. And over in the book of Numbers in the Old Testament, in chapter 10, we learned that they were actually at the mountain of God, Mount Sinai or Mount Horeb, known by both names, a little bit over 11 months. So just shy of 1 year is how long they were encamped, and all of these experiences were taking place. This chapter, as a Christian, and especially as a pastor, it humbles me, scares me, it challenges me. It inspires me. This conversation that takes place in this chapter between God and Moses is intense. I mean, it's very personal and very, very intense. God begins in chapter 33, if you look at verses 2 and 3, after saying it's time for them to leave the mountain and move on toward the promised land, he says in verse 2, I will send an angel before you, and I will drive out the Canaanite, the Amorite, the Hittite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite. Go up to a land flowing with milk and honey, for I will not go up in your midst, because you are an obstinate people, and I might destroy you on the way. Now think about that a minute. God says, it's time for y'all to leave Mount Sinai and go on to the promised land. I'm going to send an angel with you. He'll go before you, lead you, and when you get there, in my power, I will drive out the inhabitants of the land so you can have the land, but my presence is not going to go with you the way it has to this point on the journey. Pillar of fire by day and the cloud by night. God says, I'm not going to go up in your midst. I'm going to send my angel with you, and my power will drive out the inhabitants, but I am not going up with you because you are such a stubborn, obstinate people. And if I'm in your midst, I might just wipe you out. Now, there's a lesson there for us that God's holiness does not tolerate sin. God's holiness does not wink at our sin. God does tell Moses in verses 9 and following, whenever Moses entered the tent, the pillar of cloud would descend and stand at the entrance of the tent, and the Lord would speak with Moses. When all the people saw the pillar of the cloud standing at the entrance of the tent, this is the tabernacle, all the people would arise and worship, each at the entrance of his tent. In other words, God still met with Moses. He wasn't going to go up with the people, but he still met with Moses. And when Moses would go into the tent, in verse 11, the Lord used to speak to Moses face to face, just as a man speaks to his friend. Wow. Wow. And now the conversation turns very personal and very intense. Look at verse 14. He said, my presence, this is God to Moses, my presence shall go with you, Moses, and I will give you, Moses, rest. God had already said, I'm not going up in the midst of the people. I'll send my angel. I'm not going to be in the middle of the people, but Moses, I'll be with you. Verse 15. Then he said to him, Moses said to God, if your presence does not go up with us, plural, do not lead us up from here. What? Do you understand how direct Moses is being with God? God has said, Moses, I'll send my angel with the people. My power will drive out the inhabitants of the land. But I will not go up in their midst. I will not be in the midst of this people because they're too stubborn and I might kill them. But Moses, I will be with you. I will go with you, Moses. Then Moses says, God, if you won't go up with all of us, then don't send us up in the first place. Whew, that's bold. But it also shows Moses' commitment to those people. And God's response, verse 16, or Moses still talking to God, verse 16, how then can it be known that I have found favor in your sight, I and your people? Is it not by your going with us so that we, notice the plural, I and your people may be distinguished from all the other people who are upon the face of the earth? The Lord responded to Moses in 17, I will also do this thing of which you have spoken, for you have found favor in my sight. And I have known you by name. Then Moses goes on to have this incredible encounter with God, starting at verse 18. I'm not sure what all lessons to lift from this, but I do want to say that it's the presence of God in our lives that makes us unique. What makes us unique is not our moral convictions. And it's not even how we live, although that matters and there are distinctions. The thing that matters most, the thing that really is unique is the presence of God because of our relationship with Christ. We should have a desire, a passion for the presence and glory of God in our lives. And as a pastor, as a life group leader, a D group leader, a youth ministry leader, a children's ministry leader, you should have a passion for the presence of God in the lives of those you serve and lead. And coming on the heels, what we saw in the last chapter about Aaron and his failure as a leader. Now you come to this chapter, Moses being so direct and bold with God on behalf of the people. Just wow. God's presence and glory is not something any of us should ever take for granted. And being obstinate and stubborn hinders the presence of God in our lives. Having the kind of faith that has to have a mountaintop emotional experience before we can feel good and have faith, I'm not sure that person really ever experiences the presence of God. God's presence and glory is such that he doesn't just wink at our indifference. He doesn't just wink at our disobedience. He doesn't just wink at our sin. And without the presence and glory of God, what am I as a person? What am I as a so-called Christian? Without the presence and glory of God, what am I as a pastor, a leader, an empty vessel, and not much more? Don't take the presence of God in your life for granted, brothers and sisters. This is also why, as long as I'm your pastor, we're going to keep reading God's word. Because you need to encounter God's presence on Monday, Tuesday, Friday. You and God. Not just when you're hearing a great sermon or a great song. When you're quiet and alone, just you and God. That's what you mean. I'm lost in my thoughts. I'll see you tomorrow.